Hi, Decide from Groovy Entertainment. Today we got another book to read for you. Today, book is Thumbelina for 1994. So let's get started. Once long ago, there was a tiny girl no bigger than your thumb. She was as sweet and lovely as a spring morning, and her name was Thumbelina. Every day she would dance and play amongst the flowers, and every night she slept amongst the petal of a tulip. One night while she slept, an ugly old frog came hopping up from the stream. The frog saw Thumbelina sleeping and thought to herself, "Croak, what have we here? I see a perfect little wife for my son. He's too foolish and lazy to get his own wife. This way he'll be married and I'll get him off my lily pad. It's high time he had a pad of his own." Croak. The old frog carried the sleeping Thumbelina away down into the stream and left her alone on a large leaf in the middle of the swirling water. Then she swam off to get her foolish son. Thumbelina awoke to find herself trapped, but before she could even cry out, the old frog and her son swam up to the frightened girl. "Croak, so you're awake. Good, you can meet my son, your future husband." The old frog said, "I'm sure you'll make him happy, and in return, he'll bring you all the flies you can eat. But I don't eat flies, and I don't want to marry your son," cried Thumbelina. The old frog croaked, "Silence! You will marry my son and eat flies and like it." Then she turned and swam away, her lazy son behind her. Thumbelina sat down on a broad leaf and began to cry. Just then, two little fish who was swimming nearby came to her and said, "Don't worry, little one. We won't let that nasty old frog keep you here. She's always trying to boss everyone around. We'll help you." They dove down below the leaf and began to chew on the thick stem. Soon they cleaned through, and the pad began to float downstream. "Farewell, Thumbelina," the fish called. "We'll give you your regret to the frogs." Thumbelina waved as she floated off with the current. Before long, the stream widened out and floated between thick globes of pretty trees. Many birds flew overhead, and their song filled the air. One swallow flew close to her and sung prettier than all the others. Semolina sung with the gentle bird and laughed as he flew loops through the branches. After after a time, the lily pad bumped against the shore, and Semolina jumped off into the grass. "Thank you for your song, Swallow," called Thumbelina. "Will you stay with me and sing tomorrow?" "No, I can't," the bird replied. "My friend and I have to fly south before the winter snow comes. We cannot stand the cold, and it is far to the warm lands." And then he flew off until he was a tiny speck in the sky. Thumbelina wandered for many days until one morning she awoke to find snow had fallen while she slept. The once green grass was wearing a cold blanket of white, and chill reached into her bones as she walked. Before long, the snow was deep and the cold so terrible she thought she would surely freeze. Just when she couldn't take another step, Thumbelina saw a tiny door hidden in the root of a willow tree. With the last of her sense, she stumbled to the door and pushed it open. Inside, a little mouse wearing a brown and white checker apron was stirring a kettle over a fire. The mouse turned to see Thumbelina fall to the floor, nearly frozen. "Why, you are chilled to the bone, child," Mrs. Fieldmouse said, rushing over to the fallen girl. "Come in, come in." She took Thumbelina and laid her in a warm bed and covered her with a soft blanket made of wool grass. When Thumbelina awoke, the little mouse came to her side. "Well, my dear," said Mrs. Fieldmouse, "I see you feel better. The winter is hard this year. Outside is no place for a child like you. You have to stay here until the snow melts. I'll feed you and keep you warm. All I want in return is for you to keep my house neat and sing pretty songs, for I am lonely." So it went through the winter. Then one day, Mrs. Fieldmouse told her told her to expect a visitor. It was Mr. Mole, her neighbor. "Now, child, you must be very nice to Mr. Mole. He is a very he is very old and very rich." Mr. Mole was also ugly and mean and complained all the time. But when Thumbelina sung to him, he stopped his complaining and smiled a crooked smile. In an instant, he had fallen in love with her. Mr. Mole wanted Thumbelina for his wife. He promised Mrs. Fieldmouse he would keep her pantry full every winter if she would help him. She thought it. She thought it over, then agreed. One day, Mrs. Fieldmouse said, "Come along, Thumbelina. We must go see Mr. Mole's fine house today." She led Thumbelina through a dark, damp tunnel the mole had dug, connecting his house to the little mouse house. Along the way, she came upon a bird that lay still and cold. This bird looked like the one who shared my song before the snow came, Thumbelina said, but it could not be. He flew south to the warm land with his friends. When she stroked the bird, she felt a faint heartbeat. But before she could help, Mrs. Fieldmouse took her hand and pulled her along the tunnel. The old mouse dragged Thumbelina by her arm until she cried. "What, you don't like this beautiful tunnel, child?" laughed Mrs. Fieldmouse. "Well, you better get used to it. You and Mr. Mole will spend all your time down here once you are married." She laughed and rushed on with the frightened girl. At once, Thumbelina realized what Mr. Mole and Mrs. Fieldmouse had been planning. Marriage, through Thumbelina, I wouldn't marry him if he was the last creature on earth. Finally, they reached the Mole damp dark house. While Mrs. Fieldmouse and Mr. Mole made grand plans for the wedding, Thumbelina made plans of her own. She decided to run away. When the two went out to hire Spider to weave a wedding dress, Thumbelina ran swiftly back through the dark tunnel to the frozen swaddle. She hugged the cold bird and stared into its face. Thumbelina realized that it really was the same swaddle that had sung so sweetly to her as she floated down the stream. "Oh, dear Swallow, what happened to you?" Her warm tear fell on the Swallow's cold face. Just then, the bird's eyes opened, and he said, You saved me. I tried to catch up to my friends flying south, but it began to snow and my wings froze. I fell into a hole in the snow. That all I remember." Thumbelina quickly told the Swallow all that had happened to her. "And now the nasty old mole wants to make me his wife and keep me here on the ground. I can't stay here. I must escape." The Swallow checked his wings carefully. When he seemed satisfied he was all right, he began pecking a hole in the roof of the tunnel. Soon light began streaming through from outside. Shouted, suddenly shouting could be heard from far down the tunnel. It was Mr. Moe and Mrs. Fillmouth coming for Thumbelina. Thumbelina jumped onto his soft feather back, and the two pushed through the hole. The swallow soared off into the sky just as Mrs. Moe popped his ugly head out of the hole. He was too late. Thumbelina held on tightly as the swallow flew away south. Out there a long ways, she reached the warm land, and the swallow landed in a field full of beautiful flowers. Thumbelina looked around her. The air smelled sweet and clean, and the tiny girl was amazed to see many other tiny men and women coming out of the flowers to greet her. One had a crown of gold on his head. He spoke to her. It was the Prince of the Flowers. "Welcome, Thumbelina. We welcome you," he said. The prince thought Thumbelina beautiful and instantly fell in love with her. He kneeled and asked her to be his bride, and this time she said yes. So that was Thumbelina from 1994. If you like, subscribe, share, and comment, have a groovy day with another video coming out real soon.